Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and a lot of you saw the video that I linked on my fan page this morning that Maddie Fusaro did. Now, a whole lot of you asked me in private or even publicly about some of this information that Jeff Seid put out in his hour-long Q&A. I didn't watch all of it, just like Maddie, and I'm going to link Maddie's video here. I'm going to link the Q&As that he did up here also, and I'm going to link all three down below for you guys so you guys have context for this. Now, Jeff, I know that you know who I am, and you seem like a nice enough kid, but I have some big problems from a safety perspective and a misinformation perspective with some of the stuff that you said in these videos. Now, Maddie Fusaro was very, very nice in his video because Maddie is a really nice guy. I'm personally not as nice of a guy as Maddie is. So I'm going to be a little more critical, but before I do that, I will give you props for something you said in the video that I agreed with 100%, and I wish you'd have made an hour-long video about that instead. You had mentioned that you feel that squats were the best lift for quad thickness, and that if your legs are lagging, you should probably squat more often. I agree. In fact, I don't think anybody should ever squat less than twice a week. So with that, I agree. I think you were dead on. I will give you props for that. But where I'm going to disagree, I felt that you gave a couple of pieces of advice that were very dangerous to your subscribers. And the reason for that is because you have a lot of impressionable young men who listen to you, and they will take a lot of what you say as gospel. And when you say that you do something, they're going to say, hey, if I do that, I can be like Jeff. And you don't have a very good understanding of biomechanics or exercise physiology or nutrition. And so you said some things that are actually going to end up hurting people unless somebody steps in and corrects those things. Now, number one, you'd mentioned your chest lags, and to work your inner chest, you do a very narrow closed grip bench press. I know why your chest is lagging as someone who knows a lot about biomechanics. I went and watched one of your chest training clips before making this video, before I decided to address this. And your problem is that the style that you do all of your pressing with, you are very anterior deltoid dominant. That's why you have really nice delts, and you have virtually no chest thickness, to be honest. And it is your pressing style that causes it. It has nothing to do with your grip. It is that you don't know how to properly execute any of your presses. And I've got a lot of material on that. Ask me about it. I'll be more than happy to help you out there. But the very narrow closed grip press that you're recommending will absolutely hurt people over time. You're very young, so you've gotten away with it for a couple of years. You won't get away with it for long, and people who don't have drugs to help strengthen their connective tissue and tendons will not get away with it. It's going to cause tendonitis of the wrist, it can cause damage to the wrist, and it can damage the rotator cuffs over time to press that way. You never ever closed grip bench press any narrower than shoulder width. If your hands are on the smooth on the bar at all, you're messing up. You're putting yourself at risk for injury, and it's silly. And it actually gives you less development than if you had just done it wider, because you have to take like 100 extra pounds off. So that's my first issue. My next issue has to do with the diet. And this is where guys like me, all right, I'm going to be honest here. I'm a power lifter. I don't claim to be natural. You're an IFBB competitor. We know there's nobody in the IFBB who's natural. Anyone who wants to argue that is a fucking dumbass. It doesn't claim to be a natural federation. There's zero testing of any type. There's nothing to contest here. So, that being said, you're giving advice to people indirectly by saying this is what I do and this is what works for me that will hurt people who are not on drugs. They won't get away with it. And that it was the 1,800 calories that you say that you cut on 1,800 calories at around 15% fat. That's 30 grams of fat. One of these 18-year-old kids or 17-year-old kids who is listening to your advice will go try this. They're going to have impotence problems. They're going to have sex drive problems. Their dick isn't going to work. They're going to have depression issues, all sorts of problems if they follow your diet advice and they're not injecting any androgens back into their body. They're not putting anything else back in. They're going to have problems. It is extremely reckless, particularly to these young men whose endocrine systems are still developing. You can cause permanent harm to people with that type of advice. The other thing, again, was along the same lines. You said this is what you do to gain muscle when you're cutting. All right, Jeff, there's no way that your cutting diet that any person is going to gain any muscle without a shitload of drugs. So by giving that advice, these young men think that they're going to go take some branched chain amino acids and creatine, and that they're going to gain muscle with no drugs while cutting on 1,800 calories and 30 grams of fat. They're going to lose muscle. So again, it comes to the point of, if you don't know how to give nutrition advice to naturals, you need to step up and say, look, this is what I do, but if you're natural, I don't know if this will work for you or not, because it won't work for them. You're going to hurt these kids if that's what they start doing. You're going to cause problems. I don't like the fact that you're doing that for these young impressionable guys. You have way too many followers, and that's really bad advice. Now, I'm not saying you need to step up and say that you use anything, but the fact is that you know good and well that the advice that you're giving there on nutrition is going to harm people who are not on any drugs. So you need to differentiate and say, but I don't recommend that you do what I do. At the very least, say that. Use a code word like genetics, because I have really good genetics that let me get away with this, but most people can't. You can use genetics as code word for drug use. People do it all the time in the industry. I've got great genetics, that's why I get away with this. When it's just code word for drugs half the time. It's an easy way to get around it so that you don't hurt people. All right, that's really all I had to say there, but Bagpuss is saying he has something he wants to say. And I guess I better let Bagpuss talk. It doesn't end well if I don't. Jeff Seid. Yeah, you know me. That's right. Back at Body Power, I sold you a bunch of Tren and Anavar, and you ain't pay me for that shit. You hear me? You ain't pay me. I don't get my money, I'm gonna show up and take all your shit with an AK-47. You hear me? Damn it, Bagpuss. Dude, why do you always do this shit, man? You get us into trouble. You stir up shit like this. Talking about drugs and AK-47 and shit on YouTube. And then on top of that, you know you can't say that word. You know I have to edit that word out. What do you mean? Yeah, you can't say that word. You know you're pink, right? Jeff, you listen to me when I'm talking to you. You might be a corn-fed sucker with a whole lot of muscle mass, but just wait till Bagpuss gets up in that ass.